In the ancient city of Joppa, a prophet named Jonah stood at the city gates, gazing out at the vast sea. God had called upon Jonah to go to the great city of Nineveh and deliver a message of repentance, for the city's wickedness had reached its peak. But Jonah, uncertain and fearful, turned his back on God's command. Instead of heading to Nineveh, he sought refuge on a distant ship sailing to Tarshish, hoping to escape God's call. Jonah boarded a ship bound for Tarshish, trying to flee from the Lord. As the ship sailed across the sea, a violent storm suddenly struck, shaking the ship to its core. The sailors, frightened and desperate, called out to their gods. The storm worsened, and the ship threatened to break apart. The sailors cast lots to determine who was responsible for the calamity, and the lot fell on Jonah. The sailors questioned Jonah, and he confessed his identity as a servant of the Lord, the God who made the heavens and the sea. Realizing the storm was sent because of him, Jonah told them that the only way to calm the sea was to throw him overboard. Despite their reluctance, the sailors had no choice but to do as Jonah suggested. As soon as Jonah was thrown into the sea, the storm immediately subsided, and the sea became calm. After Jonah was cast into the sea, God provided a great fish to swallow him. Jonah was trapped in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. From the depths of the fish, Jonah cried out to God, praying for deliverance. He acknowledged his despair and vowed to give thanks for God's mercy once he was saved. Jonah, now trapped in the belly of the great fish, prayed to the Lord, recounting how God had saved him from drowning. He expressed his deep gratitude and acknowledged that salvation belongs to the Lord alone. He promised to fulfill his vows once God delivered him. After 3 days and nights, God commanded the fish to spit Jonah onto dry land. Jonah stood on the shore, grateful to be alive, knowing now that his mission was not over. He had been given a second chance, and God's message was clear. Jonah was to go to Nineveh. Jonah traveled to the city of Nineveh, a place known for its wickedness. He entered the city and began to proclaim that in 40 days, Nineveh would be overthrown unless its people repented. Jonah's words echoed through the city, reaching the ears of the people, including the king. The people of Nineveh, from the greatest to the least, believed Jonah's message. They fasted and wore sackcloth, showing their repentance for the evil they had committed. Even the king of Nineveh, upon hearing Jonah's warning, humbled himself. He removed his royal robes, put on sackcloth, and sat in the dust, calling for the entire city to turn away from their violence and sin. When God saw that the people of Nineveh had repented and turned away from their wickedness, he had compassion on them. God chose not to bring the destruction he had warned about, sparing the city from ruin. The people's sincere repentance had moved God's heart, and he forgave them. Jonah, however, was displeased and angry with God's decision to spare Nineveh. He had hoped that the city would be destroyed for its sins, but God had shown mercy. Jonah, feeling betrayed by God's compassion, went outside the city to sulk, sitting on a hill and waiting for the destruction he had hoped for. God, in his mercy, caused a plant to grow and provide shade for Jonah as he sat on the hill. Jonah was pleased with the shade, but the next day, God provided a worm that ate the plant, causing it to wither. The sun beat down on Jonah, and he grew faint with heat, angry that the plant had died. God then spoke to Jonah, asking him if he had the right to be angry about the plant. Jonah responded that he was angry enough to die. God gently reminded Jonah that he had not created the plant, and that he cared more about the plant than the people of Nineveh, a city full of over 120,000 people. God's lesson was clear. He had mercy on Nineveh, just as he had shown mercy to Jonah, and Jonah needed to understand God's compassion for all. The Lord concluded by asking Jonah, "Should I not be concerned about that great city?" God's words to Jonah were a reminder of his boundless mercy and compassion. Despite Jonah's anger over the plant, and his initial reluctance to see Nineveh spared, God showed him that he cared for all people. God's question to Jonah, "Should I not have concern for the great city of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left, and also many animals?" was a call for Jonah to understand the depth of God's mercy. Jonah, though still wrestling with his emotions, began to realize that God's love extends to all, even those whom we may not understand. Nineveh was spared, and Jonah, in his solitude, finally came to terms with the fact that God's mercy was greater than his own judgment.